Welcome everybody, and we're back with the Road to ECS episode 10. I just learned that is the last episode before ECS. Today we are back with an awesome guest. Adam, you've been around the blog for quite some time. I don't know exactly how many years you've been, but since I've been around, you've been around SharePoint, attached like in some role. So how about you tell us a few words about who you are, what you do today, and maybe a little bit about like where you came from, like journey over the years?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Good to talk to you all today. It'll be my first time at ECS, but I had heard about it from so many people. So I am really excited to be going this year. Last August, I celebrated 20 years at Microsoft. I joined right out of college. I could tell you two stories. I could say I worked on SharePoint all 20 years, or I could tell you I jumped around. Both are somewhat true. I started out in the Office org. At the end of a 3-year release cycle as a product manager, sort of watching devs fix bugs for a year, learned what it was like to ship a huge amount of software and code all on the same day. On a team called Document Lifecycle, totally working with SharePoint, but from the perspective of those, Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint clients. Helped what is now a $40 billion business, the security and compliance part of the company, sort of from ground floor, from zero, back when it was nothing. That's where I sort of cut my teeth as a product manager during the cloud era, sort of deep in the bowels of SharePoint on the back end, authentication, provisioning, and then for the past decade or so, I guess, because it's been 10 years since the modern SharePoint unveiled. Helping the SharePoint product strategy, content management, portals, intranets, automations. And the UX, partnering deeply with our design team on bringing the UX of SharePoint forward and its overall product strategy. So some adjacent products, teams came along during that time frame, Viva, other things that have been on working with those products. So that's been my journey. And today I think about SharePoint, I think about enterprise agents, I think about AI transformation, and then equally important, how to bring the core UX of SharePoint along.
You just stole my next question. I mean, like when I think, especially from the other side, okay, Waldek switched to the Microsoft side in the meantime, but from the other side, Waldek and me were also in the SharePoint story pretty much as time. And when I think of the time, my first version of SharePoint was 2003. So I skipped 2001. A lot of people told me that I dodged the bullet. So, but my
I think the team rewrote most of it between 2001 and 2003, including. We're still debating databases 25 years later, but I think they did a whole database switch between those two versions.
I actually went into 2003 after the merging of Microsoft Content Management Server. Whoever remembers that back in the time, because I came through that line into SharePoint. And when I remembered the first real attempts on intranets and everything what we have been doing, document libraries, the first real extensions on SharePoint that we were developing, custom solutions on top of it and everything. And 23 years later, here we are talking about SharePoint driving and powering AI. It seems like a short journey in life of one person, but when you see what all developed, it's actually insane in a positive way. I mean, now.
Yeah. Is there a question?
Yeah, there is a question, because I know that you are a person or one of the people behind the whole AI strategy behind the SharePoint. How does that feel now compared to back in the times?
I saw this comment recently on LinkedIn that, we celebrated our 25th birthday a few weeks ago on March 2nd. And there was a lot of, there was tons of people sharing stories about how SharePoint's impacted their career. People were excited about the new announcements. People also someone was like, the last time I built a web part was 2003, and I've just built one again with AI coding tools. I was like, yes, past and future merged together. But there was one comment that just struck me as the products that matter and the resilient products are the ones that become load bearing, sometimes quietly, sometimes without a lot of fanfare. And SharePoint has been load bearing for so many customers for so many years. And that really struck with me. Like that is exactly that's why I've been working on this product for so long. The more we could, load bearing, hopefully people know you have a house, you have some walls that you can knock down, and then you have the load bearing walls that are holding up the rest of the, the rest of the building. And those are the ones that, are foundational to the infrastructure, whatever you're trying to build. And that because sometimes we're the hub, sometimes we're not, sometimes we're the application platform, sometimes we're part of a suite, sometimes we draw this horseshoe with SharePoint in the center and all these apps around us, and sometimes our marketing team forgets to talk about SharePoint. It doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, I think we've become load bearing for so many customers. We take that as a responsibility, and then when these new things come around, it turns out folks want to leverage what they've built on top of SharePoint and what they've invested in, and so that's why we think about it. SharePoint's been many things, but now it's the knowledge platform for Copilot and agents, because no matter what, it has to embrace the latest trends and bring folks along. And so, we're split on our team. It's more like 60-40 if you include all the backend services. But on the UX part of the team, we're split 50-50 between core UX and then AI. If you want to just talk about it in those terms, that's important. Like, it's not. Many people think there's some AI Kool-Aid being drunk and flown around, and maybe there is, but we think very intentionally about how we are absolutely investing in AI because people want to bring forward their investments, but we also invest in the core UX. So our March 2nd announcements on our SharePoint birthday were, hey, here's a new the new SharePoint experience that everybody benefits from, and then here's some new AI investments. And I think you should expect that from your load-bearing content platform, investing in both. But happy to talk more about either of those too.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if I may go, Edis?
Doesn't matter. I
think that leads into a huge thing that I was burning to ask since I heard that you would be our guest, right? Because there's a bunch of folks who are like, agents are everywhere. We interact with them more and more and more, especially if you code. Like, it's hard to imagine life without one. But then there are folks like, internets are dead. Like, we're going to be, interacting with agents. We'll have our own assistants, and it's going to be or all chat or voice. I was like, nah, I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. And I think, like, there's no one else to hear that better than from you, Adam. Like, what is your vision of intranet in AI agentic world?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree for the foreseeable future, I think it's going to be a hybrid strategy where both exist. If today we move to a world of agents, what are those agents going to ground on if there's no content left? I mean, if you follow to its logical conclusion, like it needs grounding data, and it needs to have the context of the organization. And so maybe there's some future world in a long time where you see some breakthrough on that. But for right now, I think the way we're going to bootstrap agents, we're going to bootstrap AI, is to have your existing content, and somewhat created by AI in the future, somewhat created by humans, be an important grounding source. And maybe it's just sort of like, I don't know, mobile or something like that, where some people access through a mobile phone, some people access through a desktop web, and some people access information through agents. Now, it is more transformative than just a new endpoint like mobile, because it can sort of plan and do things as opposed to just sort of be an information retrieval space. And in fact, if you look at what we announced in March, both in SharePoint and then wider at Microsoft, it really is this change, sort of from ask and find being a lot of the focus to sort of plan and do. And I want to point out, it's just the past people have been talking about that for a while, but the frontier models from like 4 or 5 months ago are really what enabled this. Yog on my team is an engineering leader. He just published this technical deep dive. I hope we can link to it in the show notes. And it looks at the different models between Opus 4.6, GPT 5.2, and then the bleeding model that everybody loved last year, GPT 4.2, I think, 4.1. April. And we have evals, right? Basically, the success rate for the work that we announced. We had about a 50 to 60% success rate for the model that was bleeding edge last year for the scenarios that were all these plan and do scenarios, and now it's up to the 80s and 90s with the latest model. And so, if you want a little peek at the future, what's going to happen this year, it's sort of this plan and do with the context of your organization. that is easy to write a PowerPoint on, but the frontier models hadn't been good enough to deliver, and now that they are, and Microsoft maybe takes a little while to get going, but we've got those engines primed and pumped in terms of how to build software, how to deliver AI quickly, and now that it is, and now that the models have caught up, I think that's going to be the theme for this year. And so, the other thing I would say on that, is it all agents? Is it all, or is it overhyped? Is, the models had a real breakthrough in the past few months. Microsoft as product makers, I think, have been primed and waiting for this moment. And, when we're at our best, we also involve the community and creators and extenders too, which is why, like, on March 2nd, the most exciting announcement, I think, on SharePoint land was skills. Just like Cloud Code can get skills, now SharePoint AI and SharePoint will have skills. Like, that's what people latched onto. And it's like, I don't know, I don't mean this in any way derogative, but it's like catnip for our community. I mean that in a very good way. Like, they're so, like, when we looked at the original sort of plan and do functions in AI and SharePoint, the number one feedback from MVPs was like, yeah, but what about the context of the organization? What about the norms and standards? How is AI? If AI is going to not just find and seek, it's going to plan and do. It needs to have that. And so we added skills. We looked at the industry. We realized there's a model for it, and we added it to our platform. And I'm super excited to see what folks can do with sort of the skills infrastructure that really, it's like just like custom branding, just like, when you created this intranet and you were a hero for your team, now you're create a custom skill and tailor the AI experiences to exactly what your team does and the norms of the team, everything from file names to the way what's appropriate to talk about on a site. Anyways, sky's the limit. You can tell I'm excited.
Yeah.
And with a good reason.
Definitely. But when you look, things are so fast developing nowadays. Like, we are facing some changes that are like, if you skipped a month or two, like, all of a sudden you're in neck deep into all these new things that you need to catch up. And it's incredible that we are celebrating 25 years, but only 5 years ago we did celebrate 20th birthday. And it was a galactic summer, right? That is in Alt-V, right?
Yeah, we were out VR. We had Jeff keynoting this 25th birthday, and we tried to make the best out of the very challenging times for all of us. Let's just put it that way, how it was. And I was just in preparation for this talk. I was just telling to Adam and to Waldek before that it's incredible. 5 years ago, we did not know when are we going to see each other in person. I mean, Waldek and me live 2 hours car drive from each other. I did not know when I'm going to see Waldek the next time. So there was this Altspace VR. There was Jeff with a very metallic voice through this old Altspace VR voice things and everything. We had a band playing virtually, for God's sake. We had a band playing virtually on that birthday. And now we are 5 years later. We are speaking about AI, and we are all meeting in Cologne in less than 2 months. I think it's actually awesome. I mean, just when you take a look at the 5 years ago and now it's
20th birthday, yeah.
But I guess so that brings me a point, right? Because, like, I think that is that segue to what connects us being community. And Adam, like that also, like, brings me back to what you said about, like, the catnip 4, like the driver. You've been around for a long time. Has this community been always that active, or have you seen evolved over the course of years as you were involved in product? And, like, what was the time for you to kind of get immersed into it?
Oh, I think the community's always been amazing, seriously, and always been ready to embrace the latest and to keep us honest. The times it hasn't worked has been 100% when Microsoft wasn't delivering during some periods where we either didn't have the right, maybe completely the right strategy, or weren't delivering up to expectations. I feel deep responsibility to not let this community down, right? And yes, sometimes where we try to make things way too out of the box and then don't have a role for champions within an organization, or just sort of miss a trend or something like that. So I don't know. You all are closer. You've seen the community ebb and flow, and I think it's fair to say many people in our community started with SharePoint and branched out now to other products, and that's fantastic. I take that as awesome. You know, a lot of people still hold SharePoint close in their heart. They still realize it has a role, but unlike on-prem, where SharePoint was the sort of the application hosting platform as well as the place that, you know, now it's, you know, has a different role, sort of a maybe more of an L-shaped role where it has its own app and then it's a platform sometimes without even people realizing it. And then, you know, it's fantastic. We're the number one connector for Power Platform. So many Power Platform community members sort of interact with SharePoint through that. And that, you know, that's fantastic too. And so I think it's grown to adjacent products, which is great. You know, I think a lot about how do we make sure we get new members into the community, and what our role at Microsoft is, not to mandate that, but to try to encourage that, because, you know, I get 1 year older every year, and so do many. Most members of the community do as well, unless, you know, there's anybody doing some time travel or light speed. But and so how we keep the community vibrant and is, you know, something we think a lot about. And I try to meet with 3 to 4 MVPs a month. I prioritize ones that are new to the program. You know, I ask curious questions about, you know, what is this, the generation leaving college today want to get out of a community. They tend to want to, you know, I don't know if this is age or if this is just the generation. They tend to want to dance between technologies a little more as opposed to focus on one. And so, you know, which is why I'm glad something like the SharePoint framework still exemplifies that, right? You don't have to be a SharePoint expert. You just have to be a web expert, right? And so the more we can embrace industry standards, you know, maybe this thing with skills is, you know, exactly the same skills you're using in Cloud Code. So you don't, you know, if you're going to dance in and out of Microsoft a little more than be, you know, just in one tech, you know, how do we make sure we provide good opportunities for community members who prefer that, you know, that type of thing.
But it's also up to us in the community. And I mean, thank you for everything you're doing from Microsoft side. So it's also up to us in the community to help with that. The last ECS, a SharePoint legend, a very dear friend of mine, who is not working in SharePoint anymore, but obviously heart is still with SharePoint. He's with Microsoft back then, and now Kimo Forsal, the name is obviously known to a lot of people. Kimo came to me and like, this we've got a problem. I was like, Kimo, I've got 100, but tell me now, tell me which one are we talking right now? And he's like, we are getting older. And he pointed out that speakers are getting older, audiences, attendees are also getting older, and we need new people. So Kimo and Paolo Pialorzi and Mustafa and we came basically together to say, hey, what can we do? So we have had a special call for speakers / papers for the young first-time speakers. And this year we have identified 3 who are very, very exciting. I'm very excited about to see those 3 speeches, those 3 sessions on the stage. But we also we were also thinking, should we mix and match them with the more experienced speaker? Should somebody be speaking with Kimo on the stage, for example? We decided against it. But we had Kimo, Thomas Vochten, and who was the other? Paolo. Ahmad.
It was Ahmad, Kimo, and
Lee.
Yeah, Lee, yes.
Lee. So 1 MVP and 2 guys from Microsoft basically mentoring them for the first time coming to the stage and speaking on the stage. And I'm totally looking forward. We have a 17 years old young adult who has almost all Microsoft Azure certificates passed already. So how awesome is that?
That is cool.
That is really cool. Yeah. So we are going to have him also on the stage and everything. So I think we can all try our best. And I know we all are doing this. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I still think it's important to preach that story, to have this, to try to get as much young people as possible.
Adam, if we can tap a little bit in your brain, now we have you here. What tips would you give somebody who is new to, speaking, being on stage in a professional setting? What tips would you give them to basically try to rock on stage?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. And first off, I think it's great that that ECS has some new speakers and stuff like that. If I can help or meet with them or do anything, I'd love to do that. I'd love to sort of meet with the our next generation. In general, rather than speaking or anything, I would just say, find a wave to ride that's larger than yourself. That's sort of the number one career advice I try to give to folks that are sort of young. One of the reasons you're in school, it's very individualistic, right? You're getting your own grade, and pretty much you're doing things somebody has done before, because it's not the first time this class was offered. Might be the 10,000th. And then you get into the industry, right? And you are doing things that have never been done before, and it's just so important to find the right wave attached to it. Obviously, AI is a wave right now, but companies can be a wave. A coalition you're building at work could be a wave. Just do something bigger than you can accomplish yourself. And this is why I think community is so good, because what's a better wave than sort of getting immersed in the community and figuring out how it can help you and how you can help it. And so that's the number one thing. When I give people career advice, it's like, okay, so yes, think about yourself, but also think about what are you going to attach to that's bigger than yourself. And then for speaking, of course, you just got to get started. I'm glad you're creating these opportunities for folks. The other thing I would say is you'll never find another speaking engagement. Well, I won't use a double negative. Everybody in the audience is rooting for you, right? It's not like there's an awesome audience here. It's not like we all have. You might have done debate in school or something like that. There might be some conflict or controversy or resource sorting, but not here, right? Like every single person in that audience, it wants to learn from you and wants you to succeed. Like, what a better way of practicing your speaking skills and getting started, and just make sure that people will have your back, and people want to hear about what you have and what's on your mind.
Waldek, remember 2 years ago, Gabby, the daughter of our Fabian Williams.
Yes,
she was 16 when she came on stage. She had a full room. Everybody was
brilliant.
Celebrating her.
Yeah.
She was 16, and that was so awesome.
Yeah. But I guess, so beyond that, say they will have, their first experience on stage, they will enjoy it. They'll be like, yes, I want this to become my job. What's the next step? And what would you offer as a tip for somebody who wants to start? And then maybe if I can share a little bit of thing that I think you're very active internally on is the mentorship, the importance of having a mentor and having somebody who is maybe further down in the career from whom you can learn. Because for me, that was never a thing until I joined at Microsoft. Like in the past, it just never been a thing that I would have a mentor. And it was only when I joined, I became exposed to it. So helping folks to learn from the things that we learned, what kind of advice would you give folks, how to find a mentor? Because you can hear folks talk about, you should have how do I go about finding one? Can I just ask?
Well, no, that's a fantastic question. I would say, first off, let's separate mentorship from sponsorship. They're different things. A sponsorship is someone generally pretty senior that can sort of watch out for you and help you in your career, and just sort of look out and find opportunities for you. And people often think that, and that's great too. And sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're different. But mentorship is someone that, it can sort of guide you along the way, right? And be a sounding board for you. And the best mentors aren't going to tell you. They're going to sort of, it sounds a little trite, but unlock the answer that was already inside you by asking you the right question, because they know when they've gone. And that's what I try to do when I mentorship. I desperately want to just drop some facts and some advice. And sometimes there's a good session where that's appropriate, but most of the time it's about, no, what do you tell me more about what you're thinking, and getting folks there on their own, right? And then there's different types of mentors too, right? My wife and I run this blog called Mind the Beat, and she's run this whole post on the 4 or 5 different types of mentorships. And there's definitely the typical mentor, someone that is close to you in the organization, that has the context of your business, but is generally almost like an onboarding buddy. Sometimes that's a common one. It's good to get someone more senior that's far away from you, that has just enough context to know, but you can sort of talk without sort of fear that it's going to have an immediate impact on your day to day, and they can give some context, like sort of in an adjacent org. We sometimes do reverse mentoring here, where we actually, pair someone junior with someone senior, and then the point is for the junior person to mentor the senior person, because there's a lot to learn about the younger generation and also the just new ways of working. And then maybe one of my favorites is the therapy mentor, which it's just someone you could kvetch to, someone you could just sort of ask, do the righteous complaining with, but hopefully then eventually turn it into something positive and productive, as opposed to completely an outlet. And that's great too. And in your career, sometimes you don't need a mentor at all. Sometimes you need a different type. Sometimes you're going through something hard and you just need that therapy mentor. It depends on where you are on that sort of growth curve and how in the flow you are. So that's what I would say. I would say you'd be surprised how open people are to being your mentor. Just ask. Sometimes very senior leaders have a certain number they can take at a time, and they might be full. You might get on some sort of wait list, but most of the time I say yes when people ask to mentor, and the times I haven't, because I've been full or just full up or it didn't work out for other reasons. Never mind that somebody asked. In fact, it always leads to something good, even if it's not direct. So don't be afraid of using that to try to open a door too.
Yeah, and I think that is a unique view, especially when you mentioned the reverse one, where somebody who begins, it might have never occurred to them the value that they can bring, right? Because I am new, what do I know? It's no. That's exactly why. That is exactly the USP, you have and nobody else does, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the same job for longer than, average. And so it is incredibly important to me that I think about how I create space for new ideas. SharePoint, as an engineering team, tends to attract people who want to make it their home for a while, myself included. And I think that's lovely. I think that's awesome. I think it's a good thing. And it's sort of, partly because of the community, partly because a bunch of reasons, but it also can create a little bit of groupthink. It can sort of help us stay too long on a path that we shouldn't have. And so, I think a lot about how we make sure all voices are heard, especially new voices. And we just need a lot of mechanics on our team, such it's not like, well, we've tried this before. Remember doc sets? That sounds like doc sets. Do we want to do blah, 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 right? And we don't want to autopilot on we figured everything out, or just because, pre-AI worked this way, post-AI might work differently, right? Or whatever the latest trend is. And so we think a lot about how we inject that newness in.
Whenever I want to tease Besa, I just ask you, when are you bringing SP Metal back? But only hardcore SharePoint dev nerds will know what I'm talking about. But they will remember SP Metal.
Yes.
No, I mean, to say on what Adam just said, I'm just thinking, this reverse mentoring. I have incorporated my first company in 1998. Most of my team, our team today, is born in 1997. So just 1 year older than basically my first company. It's awesome. They're brilliant. They're very clever. They are very creative. But they are also challenging me all the time. Why are we doing things as we are doing? Shouldn't we be doing the things different way? This is stupid. I mean, they know that they are allowed to tell me what you just proposed. It's utterly stupid. And that I actually always think about why did they say that to me, that it's not... So yes, I think it's really important, and then we are back by the new generation. It's definitely important to hear what they are saying. But what you said, I think, Waldek, we were sticking to one technology, which we learned. But think about us back then. What choice did we have? We had basically Microsoft or Java or some obscure technologies around. Today, there's really a lot
no
of
idea what you're talking about, Java.
Yeah, it was a thing once upon a time. There were not too many quality things to choose from. So Microsoft was a logical choice. Microsoft was a natural choice. It still is, but there are many other choices right now, and I see them basically, as Adam said, hopping more between the technologies or trying different technologies. but somehow not developing passion for a single technology. They do develop passion for skills. They do develop passion for good software. But it's sometimes they say, oh God, this new ASP.NET, this is so awesome. I don't hear that. I don't hear there's one technology that they burn for.
So would it be like a blanket statement, maybe a little bit of like trying to get different perspectives here? Would it be fair to say that folks these days are less easily blown away by things? Like in the past, you would see this news like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like you would see, I know the first time that I saw Moth, it came out, blue things like, oh my God, that's so cool. And you would see a ribbon. It's like, oh my God, it's got ribbon on the web.
Yeah.
Today, you're like, shrug, right?
On the web.
But I think what Aris is talking about is exactly the reason why it is like that, because there was not that many things to choose from, and kind of like every new thing was like, oh, this is so cool, this is new, like I need to try this. Nowadays, wherever you turn, like it's a new thing, like whatever we sorry. Let's talk about AI and all the models and everything that we're using daily. Every second we have like new thing, new model, new something that is so cool, and that's why I think people are not so easily blown away as they used to be, right?
Adam?
Because the cycle just sped up so much. We got the product for 3 to 5 years, and we used it. So when the new product came out, we were like, "Wow, this is so cool! The new stuff." Now it's new thing every second.
I'll reframe the question a little bit. So it's not just us trying to figure out what the young folks think, and more what can we learn from our own journey, and what about the repeating cycles in tech? I do agree. I think as the industry gets bigger, like when I just look at the size of Microsoft, it's 10x the size from when I first started, and the industry is so much bigger, and so there's going to be more choice and more things as software eats the world, right? And so what you say is absolutely a theme. The other thing I do think is that we're at the beginning of a new cycle. And so it tends to be let a thousand flowers bloom part of the cycle. And so I'm getting excited by many things, but there's not one platform or a couple platforms that have standardized yet. I don't see any signal to mean that there's not going to be at least some amount of that over time, right? Where there will be a gravitation to like, here's the standards and practice. We're not rethinking this part of AI anymore, and everybody's doing it this way. One of the reasons I'm excited about this phase of the cycle is that we are in that sort of experimentation phase. And so you're going to see, everybody sort of start to look at a variety of tech from us. So I do think there's the long story arc that's true, and then there's the repeating cycle, of which we're in the beginning of one. And I think that's where I feel we are on the timeline.
Adam, ECS is in less than 2 months. What are you going to say on that keynote stage? I mean, there were a lot of
NDA.
What is not or that what Adam can already disclose now? Maybe there will be other things that Adam still cannot disclose now, but will be able in 2 months. That's of course happening. But we have seen series of things happening and being announced in SharePoint in March, which is insane. Even the pace is crazy. As we mentioned a few minutes ago, back in time, we would come to MVP Summit to see what Microsoft is going to publish in a year and a half, and now we are like in 2 week tacts with stuff. And I have seen a lot of cool things happening in the past few weeks. Can you tell us a bit of that, and what is your keynote going to be about, and what is our audience, what will be able to hear, what will they have opportunity to hear from you in Cologne?
Yeah, no, sounds great. I'm looking forward to it. 2 months is 7 years in AI dog years, so who knows? Who knows what the world will be like by the time ECS comes around. But like many things, I hope to start with sharing what we're hearing from customers. And I think there's a huge interest, not just in the tech, but in how to apply the tech. What are the adoption best practices? What's really happening that is working and hunting and scaling and driving adoption? And so, I hope to talk a little bit about the story arc, similar to what we talked about today already, in terms of our point of view in Microsoft of where we think the technology is going, what's ready, and what's hunting, but also just sort of letting our customers or enabling customers to tell the story. And then, I do think, sort of plan and action, plan and do. I think that's one of the themes this year, like with skills that sort of help the context and norms of the organization be embedded into the AI. And so whether that's the AI and SharePoint announcements that really sort of is a full orchestrator for all the greatness that people have done in SharePoint, allowing an expert to save time or someone new to get involved in these scenarios. Awesome. We recently announced something called Copilot Cowork, which is when the task you want to do is long running and spans multiple applications. Great, I love SharePoint, but not everything you ever want to do is only SharePoint. Sometimes you want to, cross between SharePoint and email and other apps. And so that's why we have a new destination called Copilot Cowork that will have all the skills that you see in AI and SharePoint and others around, all the other tools. And that can orchestrate long-running tasks regardless of application. Super excited about that sort of one trend, and then of course, just talk about the evolution of the Copilot app. While plan and do is awesome, ask and find is also still critically important. People need to be able to have great grounding in Copilot and in agents, and talk about that. I will make sure we also spend a good, healthy amount of time talking about the evolution of Microsoft 365 as a platform and as a series of apps. Yes, with AI, but also just there's incredible. We continue to pour innovation into the core UX, as we like to refer to it, because people have made a bet on that. And I know people are worried about what is AI the only thing getting investment? Quite the opposite. And so we'll make sure we'll cover the latest there, so people are getting the most out of the investment that they've already paid for and made, right?
Nice.
So that should do it. I think that should fill the time pretty well.
Really easily, I think.
And I know that some of our Microsoft friends who are also joining us have also plans for you on the different stages, on the different panels after that, but I'm going to leave it to them. People from your team who are also joining us, they've got plans. I'm just putting that they've got plans. I like the plans, but they are going. So for everybody who is joining us in May, yes, Adam on the keynote stage, we will hear what's Microsoft vision, what's Microsoft outlook, what's Microsoft stand of the things, but also as we told our speakers, they will be actually able to meet Adam in person and experience him live on the stages and with the people, and which is one of the things that we really love about ECS, that everybody is together, so people talk, people exchange experiences, and that's, I think, the biggest benefit beside learning, beside everything.
Absolutely. I you mentioned it 5 years ago. We celebrated SharePoint's 20th and it was remote, and it wasn't a foregone conclusion that events like this would come back after the pandemic. I am so glad they did. I think it's a validation of events like this, that they did come back in such strong ways. And like you said, it's so we can connect deeper. You can listen to a keynote anywhere, anytime, sort of virtually, but you can only really get super immersed and talk one-on-one and meet and unpack things in this sort of face-to-face environment. So super, super excited.
Gentlemen, this was an awesome episode. And this is the perfect end of the season, if I may say. Mustafa, Valdek, I think you would agree.
Totally.
Adam, thank you a lot for being with us. Thank you a lot for joining us in Cologne. Looking forward to seeing you in person again. And everybody, this is the last that you hear from Valdek, Mustafa, and me for now. We will be back after the summer break.
Online. You will hear a lot of us still in person at ECS in
Cologne. ECS, but we will be back after the ECS and after the summer break. Again, with interesting, funny, crazy, whatever topics, however you call it, and with awesome guests as we had now. And see you in Cologne.
See you, folks. Thank you. Thank you,
See you
Adam.
next one.
Thank you, Adam.